the relationship between Goering and Gerecke is very interesting. And in fact, I think you can see the importance of it to Gerecke because in the longest piece he wrote about his experience, it sort of begins with Goering and ends with Goering. He talks about the first time he met Goering when he was meeting all the prisoners, but Goering, I think, made a big impression on everybody, and that included Gerecke. And throughout the year, I think they had probably pretty interesting conversations about faith. And then at the end, yes, he has this moment. It's the night of the executions. Pretty much everybody, the prisoners weren't told, but everybody knows, it's been 2 weeks since the sentencing. It's at about that point that everybody knows that this is when it's going to happen. So the chaplains are told that morning by Andrus that this is the night, but not to tell anybody, but go visit everybody because this is it's going to be tense. So they're doing that. The two chaplains are going cell to cell to cell to cell, talking to everybody, and probably multiple times. And while they can't say, this is it, it's sort of, the feeling is in the air. Goering has become sort of morose and silent. Gerecke goes in and talks to him, and yes, is desperately trying, he's probably thinking of these 9 months or whatever it's been, that he has been making this huge effort to try to get all of these men to come back to Christianity. And he has, at this point, he believes, succeeded with some of them. Goering is sort of his white whale, he wants this. And so he's giving it one more shot, and Goering, instead of even playing along, is instead being antagonistic and really making fun of Christianity, making fun of the idea of the Trinity. And Gerecke at that point decides, this is just futile. This is not gonna happen. And so he gets ready to leave, and then Goering says, Pastor, he always called Gerecke Pastor, not chaplain, will you give me communion? And Gerecke is floored. He's just heard 15 minutes of trashing the Christian faith. And he says to him, you say that you're a Christian, but clearly we've just had a conversation where you just described everything about what I believe as silly. And Goering says, well, a German pastor would give me communion. And Gerecke says, I'm sorry, but unless I believe that you believe, I can't give you communion. So that's their last conversation. And then the thing happens with the baseball game, and 2 hours later, Goering is dead. This was the night of the executions. And I think it was Game 6 of the World Series was happening the same night. And this was the Red Sox Cardinals. So Gerecke, St. Louis guy, is obviously a Cardinals fan. O'Connor is actually a Dodgers fan, but he agrees to take the Red Sox in a bet with Gerecke, $10 bet between the two chaplains. And so they make the bet. The entire American contingent in the prison are, they're baseball fans, so they want to know what's going on. But the prison was on lockdown, and the only way they could get any sort of updates about the game was that somebody on the outside, another guard, would call into the guard booth in the prison every half inning and update them with the score. And so it's a very tense moment in the prison anyway, because everybody knows what's about to happen later that night. And they keep getting scores, but so they're all hovering around the guard booth, all the chaplains, all the guards, except for the ones who are actually at the cells. And then at some point, they get a call in that the Red Sox had taken the lead in the 8th or something, and suddenly, from down the prison block, the guard at Goring's cell screams, something's wrong, something's wrong. And so Gerecke, in the guard booth, listening to the latest update, sprints to Goering's cell. The guard by that time has opened the cell, and Gerecke is the first one to Goering's side as he is dying from the cyanide that he had taken. So it goes from this atmosphere of just sort of sports and revelry and excitement about the Cardinals being in the series against the Sox and getting this update, even though there is this overlying tension of the executions happening later that night. And then suddenly, the worst thing that could happen under Anders's command, the commandant, is happening. One of the prisoners has been able to take something to kill himself before he was, met the justice that was supposed to be given to him.
Gerecke was rooting for, of course, the Cardinals, and O'Connor, being a New York City guy, by default, did he just decide to throw a bet on the Red Sox?
Yeah, he said, I'm a Dodgers fan, but since it's the two of us, I'll take the Sox in this bet with you. So yeah, he just I think Gerecke just kind of convinced him to take the bet, be a Red Sox guy for the series. Gerecke was the first one to get to Goering as soon as his guard said something's up, and there were very intricate interviews of all the people involved in Goering's suicide. So when you look at the transcripts of the big report that was done, you can see that Goering that Gerecke was the first to the cell, kneeled down, took Goering's hand to see if he was okay. Clearly was not. There were suicide notes on Goering's body that one of the doctors who came in right after Gerecke came in. Gerecke stepped back when the doctor found these notes, handed them to Gerecke and said, "Take this." One of those notes was addressed to Gerecke. All of that put together, I think, it made him not suspicious, but I think a subject that people wanted to question. And yeah, he was interrogated, not interrogated, he was questioned just like a lot of the people involved in that night. But yes, he said that the Soviets especially were very interested in seeing what he what he knew, what he didn't know. They were a little more suspicious, I think, than the actual investigators were. It was in the courtroom. It was day 155 of the trial, about halfway through. The Nazis had heard a rumor that Gerecke was going home, and so von Papen, Hitler's chancellor, was on the stand, and Hans Fritzsche, who was Goebbels' radio chief, radio propaganda chief, who was a good writer, wrote the letter. They were in the dock. They were all sitting, or in the witness stand. They were all just sitting there. I'm sure just bored. What else are you going to do? So he wrote the letter, passed it down to Baldur von Schirach, whose mother was from Philadelphia, so he was fluent in English. He translated it into English, and then they just passed it around, and each of them signed it. And then they asked that to be sent to Gerecke's wife. And obviously, then it wasn't like they just put it in the mail. I'm sure it went through censors, and then Gerecke actually saw it before it went, and included a letter, a note to Alma that said, "Honey, you're not going to believe this. You have the most unique letter in the world right now. Don't show the newspaper."